have a look at Boolean operations in 3ds Max. Now, Boolean operations in programming are when you return a true or a false value. Sometimes it's a plus or a minus, sometimes it's a 1 or a 0. Well, a similar principle applies when you're using 3ds Max, but when using geometry, Boolean operations are an addition or a subtraction of geometry. Now here's an example. Say I wanted to make some Swiss cheese, Emmental cheese. Let's do that. Click Shapes, click Line. In the top viewport, we're going to make our cheese. Click, click and drag to make the curve. Click, click and click. So we've got like a wedge of cheese. Modify panel, modifier list, come down or press E for extrude. Find the extrude modifier and give your cheese a bit of volume. So we've made our piece of cheese, but say we want to actually put holes in our cheese. Now, if you're doing this for gaming, of course, you probably don't want to put holes in your cheese. You probably want to use a texture to save on polygon count. But let's just say we want to actually put holes in our cheese. Come to Geometry, Sphere, and we're going to make a selection of spheres of different sizes along the edge of our geometry. Now, it's important for Boolean operations that the subtraction geometry intersects the main geometry. Now, in left viewport or the front viewport, lift the holes for the cheese upwards. So you're creating a nice selection of holes. Something like that. Alt, middle mouse button to do a little orbit, or press this button here. This one, I might just move this in a little bit, up a bit, move this one along a little bit too. There we go, that looks like it'll do nicely. Now, to create a subtraction from our cheese, you click Create, Geometry, and come down to the arrow next to Standard Primitives. Click here, Compound Objects. Now, the Boolean operator, this first one here, was the original one that shipped with 3ds Max, and to be quite honest, it's not very good. So we're going to go to the Pro Boolean tool. Click this one. Now you need to have your cheese selected because it's the main object that we're adding to or subtracting from. Under Parameters, you want Subtraction. Now there's two ways of clicking Start Picking. You click Start Picking and you can just click the individual objects, or you could press H and select all of the objects at once and go Pick and turn off Start Picking, and let's have a little look. Very nice piece of Swiss cheese. It's a funny colour, so let's change it to a nice yellow. And there we go. So our Boolean tool allows us to add or subtract geometry. I'm just going to save my cheese because it's a nice piece of cheese. I'll call it Swiss cheese. And I'm going to reset because I want to show you a couple of other things. We're now going to make a cat, and we're going to make a cat out of a sphere, a big sphere for the head, little sphere for the nose. We're going to make two cones, push upwards, click and in. For the ears, I'll make the other one in a minute, and for the mouth we're going to make an ellipse. And what we're going to do is we're going to put an extrude on the ellipse. So come across to Modify, come down to Modifier List, press E and find Extrude. Give it some volume. There we go. So now we have all the bits that we need to make our cat. I'm not going to make the eyes today because we have another tutorial for making eyes. Click and drag the ellipse and position it to where you want the mouth. Move the nose inside the cat and then move it so it's kind of poking out a little bit. And with the ears, click on your rotate tool or press E in your as a shortcut and rotate your ears around. Back to move and move it across. And now you want it to intersect It actually has to go into the, don't sit it on the top, make it go all the way into the geometry. Now, to make a copy of this ear, click mirror on the top of your interface and make it a copy. Okay, and then just move the copy across. Not that I like to say I'm lazy, but it makes the angle the same. We're now ready to add or subtract this geometry from our cat. So we click our sphere, come to Create, Geometry, Compound Objects, Pro Boolean, and the first set of objects we want to make a union. We want to add them to the geometry. So I'm going to click Start Picking, click, click, and click. Now for the last piece of geometry, the mouth, we don't want a union. We want a subtraction. So under Parameters, click Subtraction, click Start Picking, and turn off Start Picking and have a look at the result. And we have a reasonably acceptable cat. Well, I'm not happy. Alt W. Because can you see what's happened around the cat's mouth? We've got irregularities on the surface. Yep. And the reason that this is happening is because the ellipse is a oval shape and the surface of the sphere is also an oval shape. And when you do a Pro Boolean with two round shapes, it has trouble interpolating between the points. I'm going to go from realistic to edged faces and shaded for a second. I just want to zoom in. Can you see, if I convert this object to an editable poly, go to vertex level, can you see that we've got a little vertex here, which is very close to this one. We're getting quite a sharp interpolation between them. We've got some other vertices here. So the Boolean doesn't always work. It's probably best used with architectural type of additions or subtractions, such as making a fireplace or cutting a hole in the side of a building or a doorway. When you have spherical shapes like this, it doesn't always work as well as it could. So the Boolean tool is one of the tools that we say to people, use it, but don't use it excessively because it doesn't always solve your problems. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to reset. I'm going to make a box and a sphere. And this time, I'm going to put some materials on each of these objects. So open up your material editor. I'll make one red and one blue. I like to name my materials. I'm a little bit particular about that. So let's add the blue to the sphere and the red one to the box. More of a pink, isn't it? There we go. No, over here much better. Nice red. Call this one red. Click the box, my select tool. There we go, and apply the selection. So now we've got two objects, and this time we've got materials applied. If I now go Create, Geometry, click next to Standard Primitives and come down to Compound Objects, Pro Boolean, do a subtraction, Start Picking, click. Can you see what's happened? The Pro Boolean tool allows the material that's on the cutter, if you like, to leave or remain on the surface of the other object. So if I come back into my material editor, click a new slot, and grab my picker material tool and click, you can see that it's actually automatically created a multi-sub-object material for you. Very nice. Okay, there's one more thing I want to do with the box. I'm resetting. Nope. Yes. If I have a box and a sphere, and this time I animate my sphere. So I'm going to move to say frame 90, and I'm going to move my sphere from here to here so that it's going through my box. See that? And then I come to my original object, Compound Objects, Pro Boolean, and again I'm going to do a subtraction, click Start Picking, and I pick my sphere. Now when I play it, can you see what's happening? It's passing through. Make that big scene, see it. One more time. It actually cuts a hole and animates at the same time. And this is how you get things passing through things in 3ds Max. Very cool. Now there are different types of parameters. You can union. You can leave the intersection, which is the remaining object. If you take away the original objects, you can subtract. You can merge object together, attach to them, which is just like attaching an edit poly. It doesn't actually change the polygon so much. Insert cuts a hole and then fills it with the remaining object. Imprint and cookie allow you to take a chunk out of the remaining geometry, but it doesn't make any geometry on the inside. These are all very good tools when you're Booleaning in. Now, be cautious when you use the Pro Boolean tool. It's very good for mechanical things. It's very good for architectural things, for spherical objects and character modeling. Sometimes you've got to think to yourself, is a Boolean a proper thing to do for this? Is there another way? Sometimes you have to think about the other way of doing things before you decide to do a Boolean. And the very last thing that I wanted to mention is, I'm just going to reset again. Make a box. Make a sphere. Now, one of the things that we like to do when we're doing Boolean operations or creating things for games is to have four-sided polys, because often game engines have trouble with multi-sided polygons. Now, if I was to Boolean these two objects together the way I did it before, you would only have a very large multi-sided poly remaining. So what you do is you click Create, Compound Objects, Pro Boolean, and now scroll down to the very bottom under Advanced Options and click Make Quadrilaterals. So now when you pick your object, when you pick your object, what you get left are quadrilaterals. Now look at the poly count. It's ridiculously large, so it might not be something that you would consider doing, but that's how you make four-sided polys with the Boolean tool. Okay, tune in next time and we'll have a look at some other features of 3D Studio Max.